there's just so many things going on, and your heart and your brain sometimes really are on different sides of that fence, and they let you know about it.
This is Champagne is Also a Band podcast. One songwriter, one song. I'm Sven, your host for a journey into the music of Champaign-Urbana. Recorded in the Blue Box studio with a songwriter from the Champaign-Urbana music scene, past or present. Champagne is Also a Band podcast is proud to be a part of the Champagne Showers Podcast Network. Welcome to Champagne is Also a Band podcast. Today, I have Clayton Burke Deering. And you may know Clayton Burke Deering from such bands as The Fights, the Rebekah Songer Band, Tractor Kings, Cole Bridges and the Overpass, the Emily Ann Band, the Landovers, and Neon Gravel. So Clayton Burke Deering, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Today we're going to be listening to your song Wild Thing, so without further ado, let's listen to the song.
See you sipping from that poison cup, just like an old friend. And as I reach for the memory of it, well, here we go again. You keep me as your food, and I'll keep running hard back to you. Not something that I want, something that I am used to.
foolish game just won't ever end.
The feelings won't relent. 7 pounds in the palm of your hand. When I see you again, love is a wild thing, and it wants just what it wants. Don't care about nobody else. Now love can't help itself. Wild thing. Wild thing.
Welcome back. So, of course, Clayton, my first and favorite question to always ask is, what came first? Was it the music or was it the lyrics?
I think the lyrics for this one. Yeah. It was some of the lyrics.
Some of the lyrics. It's always interesting to me, like, what was the thing that stirred this idea of the wild thing or wild thing? And then how does it go from being words to being music and words? Do they get generated separately, etc.? So because you said words, I would say, like, what was the line that you remember creating first?
It's the first line of the song. I see you sipping from that poison cup. That was just sort of it. And I
Gotcha.
feel like everything else kind of makes sense from that for what the song is about.
At what point did Kenna Mae become involved in, I guess, did they write any of this, or did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I always kind of kept Kenna Mae in mind when coming up with the song. Has been a dear friend of mine for a long time. And yeah, so I'm glad that did become an eventuality. Kenna Mae has written a verse and helped me orchestrate it so that it was very much like, I feel, something that we have done together, you know.
And for those that don't know, you can hear Kenna Mae talking about their song, episode 13. At what point did you come up with the music around this? I'm fascinated about how, in the simplest of terms, is going back and forth between a major and a minor chord. So you've got like A major and then you've got B minor. It's the transitions between the two that kind of give the impulsion to the music. And since they're next to each other in the scale, I think it's interesting that in hearing the chord progression back and forth, it's kind of like you're looking at the positive and the negative. You know, if you want to go with the whole like major being happy and the minor being sad, like I feel like that's even the theme of this entire piece. I want to hold on to kind of the good things, but also there's such like a negative aspect here, and then but I want to hold on to, but I don't know. I think it's interesting in looking at the different parts, and I'm just curious, how did that come about?
The words do come first for me sometimes, but it's generally a marriage between like the melody and the words that sort of steer where it goes to hopefully its eventual like finished version. And it seemed like going to that minor 2 right off the bat is sort of an interesting thing. I mean, I feel like you kind of usually hear that in more sadder tunes. But yeah, going from like the 1, like the very solid like major, it is kind of thematic. And it works that way with the lyrics too, I feel like. And the whole gist of the song is just sitting on that 1, and then it goes into that minor 2, that kind of sad, maybe not so ominous, up to the 4, a little hopeful, and then resting back at the 1, and then right back into the minor chord again. So I feel like it is really thematic, and rightfully so, for the message and for the verses of the tune.
When did you incorporate the chorus? Did you have all the verses written out? Was the chorus written before all the verses were done, or how did that work?
So usually it's something I do. Maybe a lot of other people, maybe you included, do the same thing where you will write a verse and then you will write the chorus and you feel like you've said everything already. And so then everything else is sort of like dialing it back. And that's sort of how it was for this song. You know, I think the chorus came to me pretty early on. I'd heard this guy who used to say that a lot, that love can't help itself, you know, and that just kept rattling around in my head and was it seemed like to say what needed to be said, you know.
Before I kind of get into my, like, I guess, lyrical analysis,
cool.
I guess I can kind of dive in a little bit about some of my interpretations about what this song is about. One of the things, and maybe not necessarily that this song is about love, I feel like it has the extra added concept of sometimes we get satisfied, I want to say, with misery. We get used to being so miserable about something, and then that's the thing that gives us comfort in a weird way, right? Like, so we keep digging into the same thing over and over because either one, you feel like that's all you're, like, this is the best that I could hope for, or you're just so comfortable with having that be such an aspect of your life that it just happens over and over, and you don't want to work to get out of it. And if you really do have a love, and I'm just saying that kind of in a general way, like, it requires that extra lack of comfort. It requires extra work to get to where it needs to be. So I guess in some ways I just feel this song has that, unfortunately, kind of more of the stewing where it's that point. So it's not necessarily hitting the edge of, oh, this is where I need to make the change. It's more of like, I'm sitting in it right now. Sorry, I'm going to throw in another thing. I feel like the instrumental part, like right after the first chorus, there's a point at which the instruments are kind of playing some of the same theme, and then they kind of want to break out and explore, and then it jumps back briefly into, I want to say, like the main motif of the verse, and then, like, as if it had the opportunity to, like, reassess itself, but then it falls back into the same pattern. And then there's that solo part where I feel like, ooh, you're gonna finally make it. You're gonna finally make it. You're you're breaking away from it, and then it comes back into that same pattern, and then that final verse kicks in. I always think about the instrumental part is this opportunity for reflection and, like, either reiterating the theme of the piece, or it's actually rethinking everything over and over. Are you comfortable with telling me about the story behind these words or what inspired it?
I think first I want to say I feel an amazing amount of satisfaction is not the way to put it, but I feel immensely grateful that you are interpreting it that way and picking up on the thematic possible and then just returning back to the same old slog. That is a very important part to me, that comes out, and it seems like it has. So I feel very vindicated, maybe is a way to put it.
That's a great word.
I'm just so grateful that you're just such a with it person, man. I love that you can pick up on that stuff. It makes me, I feel really grateful to have heard what you just said right now.
Yeah.
Fills my soul as an artist and as a person. So I think initially what inspired it was something I think a lot of us are familiar with maybe bad relationships or the possibility of relationships that won't work out, that wouldn't be good for you or good for them. You know, the verses are a lot about, like, falling back in love with someone. Maybe that it's not going to go anywhere, or it shouldn't go anywhere because it would not be a good thing. But you just can't help yourself but to feel that way. Anyone out there, or if you have ever, gotten back together with an ex, there's just so many things going on, and your heart and your brain sometimes really are on different sides of that fence, and they let you know about it. And just sort of that struggle is a big part of what the song is about. And it's not even necessarily about an old relationship to me, which I've had that experience before. It's like the meme of the kid who's falling off the bicycle and just slowly, progressively falls more and more and more, and then is on the ground, and your brain is telling you, don't do this. What are you doing? Don't feed into this. Don't go into it or anything. And it just happens anyhow. And I'm also trying to display how that is kind of like a beautiful, it's sad, but it's like a beautiful thing about us as people, is that we, love is wild. It wants what it wants, and it drives us, even though we know that maybe the eventuality is not the best for us. I'd say that's a lot of what inspired that song. I think I have a pretty big heart, to my detriment sometimes.
Yeah, I did have an additional interpretation as you were talking, and so I'm just going to throw this weird thing out there too. Is I'm like, I think it's also the inexplicable nature of maybe this is the time that it might actually work out. It's a song about hope, whether it makes sense or not. Maybe just maybe this will work. And I don't know. As you were talking, that kind of popped into my head. And a lot of what fascinates me in songwriting is who is the person that's talking? And even though I think intellectually, if there's a different person that provides the vocals, there's a sense that this is a different person presenting this idea or concept. And I almost want to say that the incorporation of Kenna's, I'm assuming the verse that they sing is the verse that they wrote. Maybe? I don't know. Okay.
Yep.
I almost want to say that it's a different person providing vocals. I feel like narratively it could possibly be the same person.
I think that makes a lot of sense too. I've been told recently that I write in a very conversational way, and working on this with Kenna, I just knew that they would be on the same page just from knowing Kenna and all they've done and being a fan of their writing for a really long time. When you do that, it can be such an amalgamous thing, and that makes just as much sense, rather than telling a story where you're singing it in that way, or the verses are spieled out in that way where it's very step by step. I think you picking up on that, I think that was also an important thing that Kenna was trying to have come across as well. And honestly, such an important thing to the overarching nature of love, just being not always smart and being a wild thing that's hard to contain.
I've been in a relationship for 23 years. I certainly know that 23 years ago, if I heard this song, I would have a definite different interpretation. But there's that aspect of the everlasting hope. I don't know why I want to keep going back to that, because it's in some ways it's so stupid. And sorry, don't mean to be down on anybody that really wants to believe that things can change, but sometimes hope is the dumbest thing you can believe in. Trying to hold on to hope is sometimes the most futile, but it's also one of the most beautiful things. It's so amazing that it is to believe in something, whether it makes sense or not. That gets me. So
I totally agree with you. It's always a very in the older sense of the word, of a romantic thing. It's just a beautiful thing, even if it is so stupid to be hopeful about something. That is just such a special thing. We like to see that in other people, and it's usually something that is just as transmutable or relatable between different people, being I want things to go well for that person because they are being hopeful, because they are being maybe not very full of sense right now, but
right.
that I'm totally with you, Sven. It's such a beautiful thing, even though it's a very dumb thing. Sometimes can be perceived that way, sure, but it's I don't know. That's art and beauty, man.
I guess I want to circle around to getting this recorded and putting all the different parts together. Did Nick Stein do the guitar solo?
No.
Was that you?
Yeah.
Okay. It sounded like you were speaking in Nick's voice, his language of how he puts a solo together. You know what I mean? There's something
nice.
There was something that I was just that sounds very Nick Stein, like that was his. But
I can see that correlation. I'm a big fan of how Nick has played solos ever since seeing him in his band with Cole in Easy Street in Southern Illinois. I've always been a big fan of how he does that. I wasn't trying to do that. There was a time when I was like, oh man, I'm going to be the best lead guitar player ever. That was a long time ago in a galaxy a few hours away.
How did you bring in the different aspects and the different people to perform this and then record at Matt Wenzel's studio?
I have ingratiated myself with really fantastic friends and people. And when I came to Dave, Nick, Jacob Krogar, and Emily McCown over a year ago to record an album just to see what it'd be like, we continued playing as a band. And so played some shows, had some good times, and then it was time to record another album or venture into doing that. It was still that core group, and Nick has been playing pedal steel in the band solely now, no longer playing lead guitar or anything, just because he's trying to go down that path, and he's sounding great. He's a very big fan of the C6E kind of sound. And I know it seems kind of odd to not have Dad Pride playing keys on that tune. You know, Emily McCown, Emily Ann, is also a great keys player and vocalist and writer and all these things, man. It's hard to talk about your friends that you love so much. Well, and keep it concise.
Emily McCown, episode 12. It seemed like I just got them right next to each, both Kenna and Emily, like just about the same time.
Tangent. I think I listened to that episode before I really knew who Emily was. I'd heard this buzz about Sororize and Emily McCown when they had come to town and just made such a big splash, and rightfully so. And I think, I don't even think that I knew who Emily was listening to that episode.
Huh.
That was a while ago, but yeah.
And now that makes me happy.
Anyhow, Jacob Krogar is playing the Wurlitzer on that. Such a smooth, it's all like,
oh yeah,
when he plays, smoke starts to fill in on the floor, and then you're just transported to like 70s soul,
Yeah. I like the imitation, and even there's an echo part like at the beginning of that instrumental after the first chorus, where between the guitar and the Wurlitzer. One of the hallmarks of like a really good band or a really good musical group is people that are willing to not always be on. They make themselves open to making space for the other musicians, so that there's at least like this great play back and forth. And I think that this song does a really good job of, nobody really steps into the spotlight for very long. People they shine, and then they and you know what happens when people like shine and then they kind of step back? They sparkle. I'm sorry.
I love that. I love it. Less is more a lot of the time, but I think it's also very fun to not do that.
Right.
And it's very hard to be very contained and not do more sometimes. But I don't know, I'm trying to learn that art much as all my friends are,
Art, I'm going to say what my favorite part of the song is, and
cool.
Then you will have to let me know what your favorite part of the song is. This is kind of a tough call, but maybe I'll just cheat and be like, there's two things. I want to say the beginning of the phrase, like before the verses, there's this weird sense. It sounds like there's like this floaty part that kind of happens, and I don't know how to articulate it any better than that, but there's this like at the beginning, when someone sings the beginning of the stanza for the verse. So the first few words kick in, and then it's like the beats drop. The beats, the bass, everything drops in, and it's like there's this moment where it's like, and maybe conceptually this does work because it's like, okay, maybe everything will be okay. No, it's not. For me, it's funny that the thing that I like most about it is not because it comes crashing down, but that there's this sense of like floatiness. And so I look forward to that floatiness at the beginning of the verses. So here's where I'm cheating. I'm throwing in two things. I love the exploration that happens with the instrumental part after the first chorus. Not only does it kind of explore some of the themes that you're already playing with, but it also has like a journey to it. Even though the journey ends up coming back home, you still feel like you went somewhere.
Well, Sven, I gotta say, you're so on point with just sort of describing what I was really hoping would come across. And it's given me such an intense amount of gratification just to know that that stuff has come out, or that it is landing with someone, which in the way that you're describing things, I know that it is. And it's a very big part of what I feel like I love about the song, and what I love about songwriting is that it can just be, or that all those little motifs will come out. I maybe lost my train of thought, but it is like, as you know, as a songwriter and performer yourself, like, it's so gratifying to know that those things come across, that it's not just you overanalyzing in your head, thinking you're doing more work than is actually coming across.
Do you have a favorite part?
I think my favorite part is the solo, and it's not because I'm playing the solo, and I think in your explaining it, it's become known to me that it's coming across well, is that you are very much like I've described, with being in this state of maybe being in love with someone, but knowing that you shouldn't act on it, or you shouldn't slip back into an old relationship, or you shouldn't, follow your heart all the way, is that you can really become mired in those feelings. And the thematic always returning back to being right back in those feelings that I feel like I was trying to do with having the step of, you send me spinning till I can't. Just sort of like aloof, because you'll really trick yourself when you're dealing with those emotions just in your head. And then reality comes back in and you have to deal with that. But I think, like, thematically, I really love the guitar solo because it's me trying to imitate or emulate, like, being tired of being mired in this feeling and just slamming against the walls and trying to climb and just reaching the peak, and then just, you fail, you can't do it. You just slowly slip back into that feeling of being completely helpless at times. I don't know. I feel like I did that with the solo. Again, it has nothing to do with me. It's just the theme of the song, that there is a real attempt to try to get out of that cycle. And yet it just lilts back into the same cycle, same repetition of feeling that way.
Yeah.
So I think
Awesome.
That's my favorite part.
Why did you pick this song to be the song you talked about today?
Koosh.
I know you struggled for a while to figure out which of your pieces you'd like to talk about, so...
I kind of did. Maybe I thought that this one would be more accessible. I love them all, even the unheard ones, the tunes that I don't play out. I love them all for different reasons, and for this one, I guess I felt that it was really accessible and at the heart of it, as a person who does enjoy writing, who does enjoy playing music, but is also getting a little bit older. It's like hard to keep up with things, but still trying to let, like, love and hopefulness drive the bus. I think that this song has just been very at the top of my mental charts lately.
Awesome.
It was difficult to choose.
Nice. Champaign is also a band podcast, is proud to support Jubilee Cafe. Jubilee Cafe is a free weekly meal program at Community United Church of Christ, 805 South 6th Street in Champaign, Illinois. Jubilee Cafe serves a home-cooked meal from 5 to 6:30 each Monday. Their mission is to feed hungry people by cooking healthy, delicious meals and by serving their guests restaurant-style with servers waiting on tables. Jubilee Cafe is open to anyone who cares to eat with them. Because food insecurity among students is so high, they serve students as well as others in and around the Champaign-Urbana community who struggle with hunger. Meals are free to all and will be served each Monday evening, located in the accessible lower level of the building at 6th and Daniel Streets in Champaign. For more information on the meal or how to volunteer, go to the Jubilee Cafe CUCC Facebook page or email them at jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. That's jubilee.cafe@community-ucc.org. Welcome back. So, Clayton, what is your favorite Champaign-Urbana venue?
I have spent some time and am a fan of a lot of places that no longer exist or support music, but I have been a longtime fan and still am such a fan of the Rose Bowl Tavern.
Indeed.
It feels like my Cheers bar.
Oh, yeah. Tell me people will go, Clayton, as soon as you come in.
Hey!
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I mean, and I was wondering if you would say that the Calyx Center would be your favorite venue. I kind of thought, but I think, didn't you end up with a prize at the end of the night for this year's Hog Shoot of being the most up on stage? I know you're actually, I feel like you're blushing right now, but
I'm blushing because the plan was just to do my solo set because the band couldn't make it. Dad Pride, D Prizzle was unable to make it, so it was just going to be a solo set, and that was it. That was it for the plan. And then Neilga Blacksmith asked me if I wanted to play steel with him. I thought, hell yeah. I've gotten to do that one other time before, and I'm just such a fan of their music. Yeah, Merry Travelers were putting together a porch band, and that was a lot of fun, so I joined up with that. I had my stuff there, and Keith Hall, I think you know him. I think a lot of folks know him. He plays a lot of mandolin and guitar and is such an experimenter and unafraid to try to hang with different things unknown to him before hopping on stage. Anyhow, he was putting together Keith Hall and the Creeping Grass, where he was just wanting to be more of an experimental folk Americana kind of thing, bluegrassy kind of thing. So I played steel with that too.
I had no expectations as to what that was going to be like. And then when I got there, I'm like, this is almost like ambient looper kind of. I really hope that project continues on, because I feel like there was a lot of stuff to experience and like see, and I feel like it appealed to, in a very weird way, those that really enjoy that, like, well, as I said, ambient music. At the same time, all the instruments are like bluegrassy country kind of sound, and it was this weird melding, and it was like such a chill vibe. And it also had a jam band kind of feel to it too, which is kind of like everybody kind of improvised on their own little parts.
Well, it was important to Keith that no one knew what we were going to do until we got there, which was great for me because I already had quite the load mentally.
Okay.
So I'm sure there's going to be much more of that. Keith is an incredibly creative person and likes to experiment and get into like chordal theory and all that. So more to come for sure.
Yeah. And what I thought was really interesting, at least as you being a part of that, is that I felt some of the influences of one of your projects, Neon Gravel, come through. I was like, wow, that's that voice that you use in the, I don't know, what would you call the style of Neon Gravel?
It's experimental for sure, but it's more moody than trying to be, I don't know. It's amalgamous. I mean, I think just because of the frequency that I do them, a lot of them are all very different. And so that's great for me playing pedal steel, like kind of stretching how I would play it or what I would do to each different style. And also, like, not to say it this way, but I will say it this way, to not run out of tricks or something, like a trick bag or something. Oh, yeah. It's genuinely trying to explore playing it in a different way and learning how to be and what to do in certain situations.
One of the things that I've actually really enjoyed about the Neon Gravel project is definitely the frequency. I mean, you've now done it for over a year, which means that you have, a year plus, which means there are at least 52 out there, right? You do them weekly.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I think you're up to 60, 65, something like that, which is kind of insane, right?
I think probably, I haven't counted them in a while.
It's funny, I've actually now on my calendar put a blank spot for every Friday to just drop in the information so that it repeats every year. But anyway.
I absolutely love that. Thank you. You are a legend for doing that, for making it a habit.
Thanks, Google Calendar. It is my lifeline. The thing is that the frequency, the exploration, and in some ways, the redefinition of what a pedal steel can do or the voice that it can make, I think that's been really interesting because, I don't know, instead of it just being a country folk instrument, it becomes this, I don't know, environmentally kind of stage for, what am I saying?
Keep going.
Becomes
I love
this,
it.
I don't know, it becomes an instrument that it's not just the single, it's not just the accompaniment, it's not just kind of lending those beautiful tone. I would never think of I don't know if I'm using the right words for this, but like I would never think of an aggressive tone coming off of a pedal steel. And I feel like you have done a good job of emoting the different kinds of sounds that you can make with it. So I think that's been fun, and I really hope you never run out of a bag of tricks, even though I think a lot of it is just you're very creative. So I think you just keep finding new themes. But I will put a link to a Neon Gravel Bandcamp in the show notes, so please check it out.
Thank you. Legend.
You could spend about half a day just listening straight through. I mean, you're more than an album. You're now a collection of...
Yeah, I'm at the point now where I would like to make some cassettes or do like some releases on distro. I can actually select from my favorites and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Which is nice.
What do you think makes a good music scene, or what makes a good music community?
Here's what I think about when I think about that. I enjoy going out to see different shows. I enjoy going out to see and just kind of see who's working on what's going on. Oh, this is I did not know that this little microcosm of this whole scene was a thing, or oh, that's who this person is that they've been talking about. But I also like playing. I like playing, and like I said, I've ingratiated myself with just people whom I really respect, their songwriting, their music, and I get to play with my best friends in some bands. I get to play with people who, when I moved to town, Tractor Kings just blew my mind, and now I get to play in the band. Like, I'm very grateful to get to do all that stuff, but I also recognize that regardless of how busy you are, like, you also need to support the scene by like going to shows and stuff. And this is me telling myself that, and reminding myself that it's important to be both sides of that scene. For musicians, I feel like, of course, having a collective periphery of just local people, maybe non-musicians, is also very important, so that it can foster the kind of appreciation for bands who are trying to do something, or who just enjoy giving the audience a good show. I know that there's just so many legs. That's such a really big question, really. It has so many legs to answer, but I think that's one that I've been thinking about a little bit more often, just as my time has been dwindling down, and then from being busy playing, and then also trying to spend the time like going out and being a part of, or going to see what other people are doing. It's a Sunday to Sunday very quick.
Right.
And the week is gone.
Yeah.
But that's important for the scene, man. I just love seeing all the cool things that are going on, and everyone just like, God, everyone is so busy recording and writing and trying to divine the best iterations of bands and chemistry with each other. I just love to see it. I feel so grateful that I'm a part of it.
I have to admit, I don't know, and now that I've said this, it's going to happen, but I don't know if there's ever been a time that I put in that little bit of extra effort to go to a show, even though I would have been like, I'm kind of tired, I don't feel like doing it right now. I'm just like, my social battery is gone.
It's a real thing.
And even when I go, I don't end up feeling like it was time wasted. I'm always like, I was glad that I did it, But as I said, now that I've said it, now like the next show that I go to, it's almost like, no, I just want to go home. But I mean, it's one of those things. It's like, it's a habit too. It's like getting yourself out there to go and do that. People supporting each other, that's the only way that it's going to continue to grow.
There really is just so much music in town. It's really hard to keep up with all of it, I mean, that's such a good problem to have, I think,
I mean, we really missed that a lot during 2020, right? Like, all of a sudden that just was gone.
Yeah, you're not getting to hear the music live. Like, how crazy of a time was that? Not getting to be in the same room,
Yeah.
Whew, so nice to be back.
Although I will give shout outs to those that continued to try to do live shows that were broadcast. I guess you could say the only one that's coming to mind exactly at this moment was, Vivi Lightbody did a show in Chicago, midweek, and normally I wouldn't have been able to see it, but because they streamed it, I was able to catch a show and throw them, kind of a ticket price at the same time. And it's like I would never. I think I was even making dinner at the time. I had just put up my phone and had my headphones on, and just like, I don't want us to lose some of that. So I guess in some ways I'm begging people to hold on to some of those aspects that we learned a lot about. But anyway, that's my soapbox. But
no, I think that's a great platform, and I will stand on that box with you, my friend. I think that was really cool, and a lot of folks learned the validity of doing it that way. Yeah, I kind of wasn't thinking about that because I generally enjoy being in the room, but all the advancements with streaming and how it does make sense for some musicians, I hope with you that doesn't just go away.
I mean, you're creating accessibility too, which is amazing. Music should be for everyone, and accessible is key. I was just thinking about how I had a music teacher in junior high that she actually had everybody just take blank staff paper and write notes, and then she would just play them. I was like, oh, that doesn't sound too bad. So I just started doing this thing where I'm just I didn't really have any way to play it, any specific great talent, but I just started writing my own, just writing it, and I heard it, and I was like, oh my gosh. But somehow in my mind, that clicked, oh, I could do this. And just the ability to be able to know that I could do it set me on that course. And I guess in some ways I keep thinking about how many people are out there that don't realize they can do something because they don't see or get the acknowledgement that they could do it. The barriers to certain things are not just the ability to do something, but just knowing that you could do it is this weird switch of an ability. And by switch I don't mean swapping, I mean it's like flipping a light switch when the light bulb goes off, that you can do something. I think, unfortunately, I do think that maybe a lot of people don't get that intro to certain things in their life, whether music or something else. Sometimes it's self-respect, which really sucks. But that is such a gift, man, that you've been given, that I'm not sure that I remember what that was for me. Teachers in class or out of class are just the Jedi of our world. That's all there is to it. Jedi or Sith. I will give them that too.
They can teach you the wrong things, the dark things, yes. I was hanging out with, it was for Emily McCown's birthday. Kenna Mae, me, Jacob Kroger, and Emily McCown went to Wheelhouse. And we were riding back, and Emily was talking about something. I'm sorry, I can't recall what I had for breakfast yesterday. But Kenna tells them, they're like, you teach me. And that was the first time I'm 36 now. I pretty much was then. This was only a month ago. But that was the first time that I had heard someone say that, and it just bloomed on me in such a beautiful way. The you teach me thing, reinforcing and showing gratitude and addressing that, when your friends or someone that you appreciate or whoever just teaches you. I don't know. It's not even just about being oh, that's a nice way to say thank you.
Champaign is also a Band podcast is proud to support Exile on Main Street. Exile on Main Street, located in the old train station building at 100 North Chestnut Street in downtown Champaign, has been helping to build record collections since 2004. Carrying a wide array of new and used LPs, CDs, and video games. Exile on Main Street has something for just about any music enthusiast and old-school gaming devotee. Exile also hosts regular free live music shows on its stage, so be sure to check out their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for the up-to-date details on the next upcoming event. Open 7 days a week. They can be reached by phone at 217-398-MAIN. That's 217-398-6246. Welcome back. So, Clayton, what is your favorite non-musical thing or things?
All right, are you ready for this, Sven?
I am.
I don't know this about you. I maybe have a feeling, and I've thought about this a lot because I feel like this, in listening to all the podcasts that I have, not all of them, sorry. There's like 100 and some of them now. Yeah,
you are going to be 111th.
111. Wow. I love the iconography of just the same number repeated.
You betcha.
It was a hard thing to choose, but I think that I have to say video games.
Oh.
Now, I know that's kind of a broad scope. So let me give you a little backstory on that, if it's okay if I spin the yarn.
Sure.
When I was younger, in true escapist tendencies, when things were not going all that well when I was younger, and my dad had passed away, my grandpa had passed away, and then my grandma had passed away, I was really just sort of like starting to play video games and realizing what a nice escape that was. And I have always kept like a certain element of escapism, which I feel like a lot of people do with video games.
Right.
And that's something that I still enjoy to this day. Although I will say, I don't have a lot of time to play video games. It's terrible. I'll be like, maybe an hour a day or every other day. And that's not really fair because it'll just be a long time. And like the kind of video games that my partner Callie, love you babe, and I play require like time.
Right. I don't know if I've played a video game in a really long time, but
you don't play video games.
I also do not have any. I will say that the last game system that I had was the Wii, not the Wii Switch or anything like that, just the Wii. But before that was the GameCube. I don't know why I'm on Nintendo, but whatever. I used to actually be able to play video games long enough that I would get sore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I would develop carpal tunnel. You know, I mean, it's weird to me. Well, now my video games are like me sitting and editing for many, many hours. And it's like, yeah, high score. 7 hours. Way to go. But yeah, I wouldn't mind just being able to switch my brain off, but while being active, like you're actually engaging in something. So I think now I just binge something which is totally inactive. It's not interactive, right? Like you could shut your brain off for, instead of binging a series, I could be playing this long video game where I'm actually in control and interacting rather than just kind of this passive. I was just thinking about like, maybe I should go back to that. I wonder if I'd be feeling a little less like I wasted my time if I binged something, maybe.
Well,
but
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think this is really important, actually, because I think that some people are like, oh, I wouldn't play video games. I have no time. I do stuff in real life, you know? And other people, very intelligent, smart, productive people also enjoy it too. And I think that there is something to, like, when you binge watch a show, your mind is still active, but you're getting to relax. When you play video games, in my opinion, the right way, your mind is active and you're kind of escaping from the stresses and other things that are going on because maybe you have an overactive mind and you need to take that dog out for a walk, you know, for an hour or something like that. You know, it doesn't feel so much like lost time, but certainly there are times when it's not a good replacer for like trying to find relaxation, I don't think, because yeah, you need time for your mind to just space out.
I know that maybe I'm looking at this the exact opposite way of how it should be, but there's something about doing something that can be quote unquote stressful. Like you get worried, like, oh my gosh, my character's going to die or whatever. I mean, I'm making this as like simple as possible, but
this is so real.
You know, like, so you have a moment of like stress, but in the end, it's like, I can just turn that off. And then your escapism is something that also allows you to escape as well, right? So you can jump into a different world, be in a different place. As soon as it stresses you out, at the end of the day, you can just turn it off. kind of like a dream, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was a nightmare, but it wasn't real. To me, I feel like that could be like a relief in itself. Anyway,
I totally agree with you.
Like, thinking about that.
When I was getting all my teeth taken out a little bit before COVID, I think, maybe during the same time. I kind of can't remember. It was all a dream. The most hardest part of my life kind of dream. But I had met some people online just because I was staying home, you know what I mean? And I couldn't really like write, and I couldn't really do a lot because I was taking a lot of pain meds, and so video games I could do, and online chat rooms I could do. And I had met some friends whom are still my friends to this day. I haven't played with them in a long time, but I still consider them real good buds. We would play games together, and we'd play a couple games that were so stressful that it really had me thinking, like, this is terrible. I'm stressing about this more. Like, this is no longer relaxing. This is no longer a good escape. This is way more stress, and I need to relax after I do it. And then that's when it becomes a problem. Like, playing games or getting in situations like that where when you take the headset off, you're like, oh, all right, okay, time to relax. Like, that's silly.
Really random thought, but I'm like, is it kind of like emotional exercise, right? Like, it's kind of dumb to run. I'm going to say it. I'm sorry, runners, but basically you put yourself through some stress, right? And you kind of accomplish something, and it's hard, and you breathe hard, and your heart just wants to jump out of your chest, and etc. But at the end of the day, it's like, why did I go through that? Well, it's just like I'm physically training myself to do better the next time, and I'm almost wondering
under pressure
if maybe the whole video game, like, stressing you out is like emotional training. I don't know. Anyway, so feel free to add at me and tell me that I'm just dumb, but sometimes I'm like, well,
all right, runners,
you know,
get him.
Well, not even the running thing, but just like video games as an emotional trainer as well, you know, like as something that you kind of work it out, and you get an opportunity to stress out about something, but then the next time maybe it won't be as stressful. I don't know. The only thing I can equate to that is, like, I had a decent car accident where I actually rolled the car.
Whoa.
And I think the year after that, I was just like, everything felt like it had the volume turned down. So I don't know. It was kind of interesting. Like, it just like pushed me past this one point, and then I was like, oh, well, just isn't that bad, I guess. So I don't, you know, some might be interjecting or screaming at their podcast right now saying, you know what, that's trauma. That's what you're describing is trauma.
Yeah.
So I you know, we all cope in different ways, right? So yeah, sorry.
Well, I see
weird tangent.
I see I'm seeing the parallel you're drawing between the healthy parallel you're drawing between, like, pushing and exerting yourself harder so that you know, in the future you can perform at that level with more ease, you know. And sometimes that I can see that parallel between, like, playing stressful video games will help you in that situation next time. I guess it just depends on how applicable it is afterwards, you know.
Yeah, and I'm not saying don't traumatize yourself with something. Like, do what you feels safe. Everybody, you know. Some of those video games can be quite real, you know. Clayton, it has been a pleasure just talking with you.
It has been so nice.
About your song Wild Thing, you know, the Champaign-Urbana music scene, but also, you know, your favorite non-musical things. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fantastic just hanging out with you and rapping. Thank you for listening to Champaign is Also a Band podcast. This is Clayton Burke Deering reminding you, great music is out there. Go find it where you live.
that's a wrap.
Champagne is also a band.
You almost have an NPR voice. It's so good.
South Peter on the inside.